These are my top materials that I use for carving stamps. These are all the supplies that I need when I'm going to carve any stamp, big or small, and I'm going to share them with you today. And if you stay to the end of the video, which I certainly hope you do, I'm going to share with you how to properly ink up a stamp with an ink pad, because there's some nuance to it. By the way, I'm Autumn. I'm a stamp carving artist. I live north of Boston, and I have a saying, stamping is what life is all about. The true meaning of that is, find something that lights you up, and carving stamps and using my stamps lights me up. And if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to subscribe. I'd love to see you here. We have a lot of fun. So there are 5 categories for the supplies that I use when I carve stamps. Number 1 is the carving tools, the things that I use to carve the rubber material. Number 2 is the rubber material that I use to carve stamps. Number 3 is the inks that I use. And number 4 are the papers that I use, because they do make a difference, and some are more helpful than others. And number 5 are the extras that I have. They're all important, and so I'm excited to share them with you, so let's just jump right in. Okay, so the first category is carving tools, and I use Speedball's linocut blade. All of the ones that I have are by Speedball right now. I don't use the blades that are permanent blades that you have to keep sharpening. I just haven't gone down that road. I do like the comfort of this one, so these are the ones that I use. And all of these. They have a screw off end, and you can add extra blades into the end or into the cavity of the handle. I don't do that because I don't like hearing the blades and feeling the blades rattle around in the handle when I'm using it, so I just don't use that. But that's a clever design, you know. I guess you could maybe wrap them in some tissue or something if it bothered you and you really did want to store them in there. That might be an option. So the number 1 blade that I always use is a number 1 V-shaped blade. And I just keep one of my handles always with this blade. I have backup blades that I have available when they do get dull, and they will, and you'll be able to tell. It's just the perfect blade for carving detail. It's just my universal blade, and it's great for carving detail, and it's my go-to. The other one is my number 2 V-shaped blade, and you can see how it is here. It's a little bit deeper, a little bit bolder, and it has its purposes, and I do like using it occasionally. Now also, there's a number 3 V-shaped blade. The number 3 V-shaped blade is great. It has some really bold applications, and it might be just what you're looking for. Okay, so this is the number 5 U-shaped blade, and this one I like because it's not a V-shape, it's a U-shape. Now this one is they call it a lino zip. I say linoleum. I know it's linoleum in England, but I live in America, so I call it linoleum. So I call it lino zip, and I call it linocut. But everybody in America calls it lino. So if you hear me say lino, that's what I mean. I was told by a professional lino cutter artist that you can say either or. So this is called a lino zip, and it's really great for scooping out big pieces of rubber material that you want to remove for backgrounds to create negative space. This one comes in handy. Just remember, it's got a really big bite, so just be careful, and you know exactly where you're going with this because it can run away from you. The number 5 U-shaped blade and the number 25 lino zip kind of serve the same purpose in my world, but not always. You can also get this handle here. This is the wooden handle that Speedball offers, a great economical approach, and it's also good if you want to have several handles but you don't want to spend the money on the plastic ones. But just make sure that when you replace the blade that you use a cloth, because you don't want to injure yourself. And that's always important when you're carving stamps. Safety first. Okay, so those are my carving tools. But ever so important is my craft knife by Fiskars. And this one is a triangle handle, which is so super comfortable to hold. You can see it's got the little grooves right on top where the top of the blade goes, and you can always know how to hold it, and it's so comfortable. I use this thing all the time. It is amazing. And you can get extra blades, and I implore you to do that too, because they will go dull. All right, rubber material. What are you going to use to carve your stamps with? Well, my go-to is always 100% Speedball Speedy Carve. It is the best material out there, and I'm telling you, I've tried, I can't say I've tried them all, but I've tried enough to know that I'm always going to come back to this one. It's durable, it is reliable. Did I say it's durable? Because it's durable. There's just no other material for me. This is the one I'm going to go to. I use it when I mount them on acrylic blocks with two-way stick glue. I've done some videos on that. I use it this way. I've also used it mounted on wooden blocks. And I also just use it like this. Using it this way with an ink pad, you do get your fingers inky, but it works. And it just takes a little skill, a little practice, you know, just be careful. Yes, this material, double thumbs up for me, always. Now, they also have another material called Speedy Cut, which is their student grade material. It's the color of putty. It's a little bit thicker, so it does make it easier to hold your stamp. It breaks, it will crumble, it can get nicked very easily, so keep that in mind. It's definitely affordable, but just keep that in mind. That being said, I still use it, and I still have stamps that I've used for decades from this material. But like I said, just remember, it crumbles and breaks, but it can hold up if you take care of it. Now, their other material that they have, which I'm just not a fan of, but again, it's a student grade quality. It's the Easy Cut by Speedball. I don't know what to say about it. Try it. If it's the only thing available to you, try it. It's, again, I think more student grade, and it can crumble and break. I have also found that it does get hard over time, and it doesn't stamp the most crisp image. Something about the surface, I don't know what it is. It's something about the consistency. It's a little bit, I don't want to say porous, but it does have that kind of texture where it can pick up the imperfections in the surface. It's really not worth even talking too much about, and over time it will kind of dry up. The edges might be altered a little bit, and it will get hard. These two won't. They won't dry up. They're going to hold up really well. Just the structure of this material is just supreme, and if you're going to carve stamps and you want them to last, just invest in this one. It's the best. All right, inks. Let's talk about inks. Inks. I love inks. I'm only talking about ink pads here. So ink pads are important if you're going to use stamps, and you want to make sure that you have a good collection, and it doesn't have to be a big collection of ink pads. Hands down, the #1 ink by far, bar none, is this ink by Sukaniko called VersaFine Clear. Now, I don't know how many years it's been out. It hasn't been out as long as I've been stamping. And when this came out, I was like, what? This is amazing. This ink pad will not let you down. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos where I talk about ink, I talk about making sure that you have re-inkers, because the thing about ink pads, they can only get you so far. And unless you have a re-inker for your ink pad, you're not going to get very far. It will eventually dry up. It just will. It's just how it is. You just won't be able to get a good print, strong, bold impression if you don't have a re-inker ready to use when you are ready to stamp. But that being said, this ink will get you through for a while before you have to buy the re-inker. I cannot say that about any other ink pad that I have ever used. And I've used thousands, I don't know, maybe. But this ink is the best. Now, it is not water soluble, and when I use it, I just stamp it off to kind of clear my ink off of my stamp, or I'll wipe it on a cloth or paper towel, or stamp it off on my art table paper. Get yourself some black ink. This is their Nocturne. You're not gonna regret ever having black ink, and then invest in some of the other colors. They have a huge line of colors, and I use them and love them. And I put little stickers on the sides on the opposite corners so that when I have them stacked, I can see what color I'm going to grab. I also put a sticker on the back so that I can see what color it is. I leave my ink pads upside down because gravity does the work for me. When I go to open up my ink pad, I know that the ink is right on the surface of the ink pad. It hasn't sunk down to the bottom so that you can't access the majority of your ink. So storing them upside down is a big plus, and I advise you to do that. I will say also, if you can see this here, their ink pads will come and they will look like that they're not fully inked up. Don't let that fool you. They are. Their colors are really bold, but lately they've been coming out with some lighter shades, which is good to know, and they're on my list to purchase all of them. So it's good to have lighter color inks, darker color inks. Make sure you have a good yellow. Get a couple of different greens. What I used to do when I was starting to invest in ink pads, I would say, okay, I've got $50. You know, if the ink pad was $10, I would buy myself 5 ink pads, and I would make sure I would get colors that I knew I was really gonna use. So just start slowly investing in inks that you know that you're gonna use, because you'll be glad to have several colors. Now, the other ink that you definitely need to have, I think, is by Sukaniko as well. They make amazing inks, they always have, is StazOn. And originally it came in these big pads, and you would take it off, and it had this top on this little protector on top, and it says, do not discard, because you want this to protect your ink from drying out. The thing about StazOn is it stays on. Sorry, I had to. It is for non-porous surfaces. So like with this VersaFine Clear, you'll see that it will take a little bit to dry. It will dry and it will be permanent. But this one dries quickly, and it is great for utilitarian things, but it's also good for making sure that your ink doesn't run ever. This isn't gonna run either, but this is just a great one to have. And if you get no other color, get the black StazOn and get the re-inker. And it does dry out quickly. That's why they have the extra lid thingy on it. So get the re-inker, you'll be glad you did. And you'll be saying, gosh, I remember when Autumn told me to get the re-inker, and I'm really glad I did. And again, you can get other colors, and I suggest you do, because it's good to have other colors. You'll just see, you'll trust me, you'll see. So get your re-inkers, get the ink pads that you want, and another trick, some of these ink pads, they'll have the name, some of them, I don't know why Sukaniko's doing this. They don't put the name of the color on the back of the ink pad. They just put the color number. So I write the name on the back of the ink pad so I know what it is. But one of the tips that I do for all of my ink pads is if I have the re-inker, I'll circle the name on the back of the ink pad so I know when I look at it, oh, I have the re-inker for this. If I happen to pick up an ink pad that I don't have a circle on the back, then I know I need to order the re-inker. So just a little tip. All right, let's talk about paper. Paper is an important subject for stamp carving, and there are a lot of reasons for it, but just know that when you print with a stamp or any kind of linocut, it is a pressure sensitive activity. So the process does require for the carved material to come in contact with the paper. And when that happens, there has to be optimum connectivity. There has to be optimum contact for the print and the paper. And of course, the ink makes a big difference too. The paper is going to have a big impact on that. If you have a really rough paper, it's not going to give you a clear, crisp image. And it's going to show, the texture of the paper is going to show. All right, so let's talk about that. I have looked for years and years and years and tried dozens and dozens of papers. I can't say I've tried them all, but I feel like sometimes I have. Trying to find the right paper that's the smooth enough surface that's going to give me the crispest, clearest impression when I make a print with a stamp. I have tried marker papers. I have tried all sorts of papers. And this is what I have found recently that I am obsessed with. I love it. It works beautifully, and I kind of came across it accidentally. I was in New York this summer. My daughter was getting married, and I had to print up some table numbers and some name tags, and I went to the local FedEx print shop, and she printed out some samples. And when I touched this paper that she printed out, I was like, oh my God, what is this paper? And she didn't understand why I was reacting the way I was about this amazing paper, because it just felt so smooth and silky. And I was like, what is this paper? And she's like, it's 24-pound paper, whatever, crazy lady. And I'm like, no, really, what is it? And so I literally made her bring the ream of paper out so I could see what it was, because I said, I'm getting this paper. And that was it. I knew this was the one. And so I came home and I ordered it. And I got the one with the 3-hole punch because I wasn't paying attention. And then I went to order it again, and then I got the one that was thicker weight, but it still works. So don't get the one with the parrot on it. Get the one with the butterfly. I'll leave a link. You'll be fine. But I'm telling you, and it's so affordable. I'm just the print. It comes out clear and crisp, and it's just so perfect to work with, and I love it. Now, I have used other marker papers throughout the year. I've used Borden and Riley 234 Paris bleed proof paper, which is lovely. It's a little bit heavier weight. I've also used B marker paper, lovely as well. They also make that in or they used to, I don't know. They would make it in a binder or a spiral bound book, which is great for keeping a journal or a sketchbook of stamped imagery. But I'm here to say this hammer mill, I'm not looking anymore. I found the paper I've been looking for years, and I'm so happy. Another one of my favorite papers that I just finally resigned to just ordering a ream of is just this big 12 by 18, and you can get many different sizes, of newsprint. I have purchased pads of newsprint, but I found that when you buy it in bulk, it's smoother. There's something really great about the surface. And again, a smooth surface paper is important when you're stamping and you're printing. So I'll leave a link for this one as well. I got this from Blick, and super, super affordable. Like $12 for a ream of like 500. Unbelievable. So this works great for putting on your desk and having your art table paper to be covering your desk. You cannot go wrong with having a good stash of newsprint. One of the great things about the newsprint that I love to use when I'm stamping, and also my Hammermill printer paper, is the weight. And this makes it really convenient for collage, because I like to stamp my imagery, cut it out, and collage it into my work. So this is something that does come in handy if you're stamping on a thicker piece of paper and you cut it out. It's a little bit more clunky to collage with, but you can do it. So just keep that in mind. Okay, now another very important paper that I need in my stamp carving process is tracing paper. Now, I was given years ago by a friend who was moving, and he had done a lot of gardening, landscape design, and he had a big oversized pad of this vellum. It's fade out design and sketch vellum, and I used it for years. I used it up. I used well, not every square inch, but I used it. And it's really cool because it's got a grid on it. And that does come in handy, I am telling you, when you think you're carving something and you want to make sure that things are lined up, or it's just a great reference to have. What I use it for is when I'm tracing the image that I'm going to carve. So I'll trace the image that I've sketched in my sketchbook, or it can be a photograph or anything. And you trace it with this paper, then you're going to transfer that traced image onto your rubber material, and then you're going to burnish it and that's how you get your image transferred to your rubber material. Oh, you know what I forgot? A pencil. You need a pencil. You need a pencil. A number 2 pencil is all you need. You just need a good quality pencil for tracing your, I thought my list was complete. Okay. I guess this goes without saying. You need a pencil for your tracing. So get yourself a good pencil, or 2 or 3. Okay, and you need tracing paper. You don't need this fancy, really great tracing paper, although you'll be glad you have it if you do. You can just use basic tracing paper, and yes, of course, you can use printer paper, just some crappy printer paper. You can use that, or you can use tissue paper, but being able to see through it does help tremendously. All right, my last piece of paper that I gotta have it. It's always within reach on my desk. That is my 4x6 blank index cards. And I love these because I'm always testing things out, writing notes, or doing things that I just need a quick piece of paper that I need to jot things down or test colors or a gazillion other things that I use this for. And I keep it right within reach. And I realized several years ago that if I'm doing this on full-size pieces of paper, then I have full-size pieces of paper all over my desk, and I have trouble keeping myself organized enough. But when I put things on index cards, they're contained. I can hold them, I can look at them, and I can go, okay, and I can put them in little convenient, organizable stacks that don't make me crazy. And of course, me being absent-minded when I'm ordering things online, I ordered the larger size, not thinking, and I'm really glad I did because now I have 2 different sizes and they do come in handy. So get yourself a stack of blank index cards. Of course, the lined ones will work well too, but you know, they're blank and it's much more usable. Okay, now we're getting to the extras. The extras, a pencil. You need a pencil. You need a pencil. Did I say you need a pencil? Because I forgot that part. You need a pencil. Okay, kneaded erasers. I'm telling you, a kneaded eraser is one of the greatest things you can have in your studio. They are great erasers. They work really, really well. And the thing that I love about them for stamps is that it helps clean your stamp as you are carving. It gets all those little bits and crumbs that are in your rubber material as you're carving your stamp, because you will see just one little tiny bit of rubber material will get stuck on your stamp, and you make the impression and you'll see it on your print. So get a good kneaded eraser. They are not all the same, by the way. I like the Faber-Castell kneaded erasers. Just get the Faber-Castell, it's the best. They come in colors. Again, links will be in the description. This one is old. I've had it for a long time. It's much stiffer and it's harder to use, but it still works and I do use it. This one's newer and more malleable and a little bit easier on your hands, but get yourself a kneaded eraser. Okay, for your StazOn, it's probably best to have a cleaning solvent, and they make one, and so just get one. It also helps to clean your stamp if you are using darker colors and then you go to move to a lighter color and it transfers. You'll see it and you'll know what happened, and this just helps make it easier. So get yourself a cleaner. You need a cutting mat. You probably already have one. Great investment, just get one. If you don't have one, find yourself a pad of paper that's used, and you can start with that. Try that. Okay, you need tape. You need some kind of tape that you can tape your tracing paper to the image that you're going to trace. I use washi tape. You probably have washi tape. If you're a creative, I'm sure you have some somewhere. They work great. Also, you're going to use your tape for taking your traced image and putting it onto your rubber material and taping it in place so that you can burnish it and it stays in place and it doesn't shift, which would alter your transferred image. You just want to keep it nice and secure on your rubber material as you burnish it, which brings me to the next extra material item that you need, and that is a burnisher. It's like a bone folder. I don't use bone folders because I don't want any animals to be harmed in my art making. So I have a bamboo one. A couple of videos before, you might have heard me say, if anybody knows where I can get wooden ones, let me know. Found it on the internet. I'm so thankful. But you can use other things too, and you can find little wooden spoons or little wooden spreaders. Those work great too. You just need to be able to burnish your traced pencil drawing onto your rubber material. Yeah, you can use the back of your finger, but that starts to get hot after a while and annoying and uncomfortable. So the best tool is always good to have. Okay, so let's talk about how to ink up your stamp. I have seen so many people, I don't know, man, they just take their stamp and they just don't get it. They'll just take their stamp and just carelessly go like this and make their impression, and the impression is not complete. So, when you are inking up your stamp, you need to make sure your ink pad is nice and wet and has enough ink. Start there. I like to turn the rubber material facing up to the sky. You take your ink and you tamp consistently all over your carved surface. You can see here I am pouncing and tamping and making sure that I am distributing that ink thoroughly across the carved image, because it's going to make a difference in how your print turns out. I like to say, when you think you have enough ink, add a little bit more. And then of course, always take a test print. Always. This is, have a piece of paper or your art table paper, which is what you've seen me use. I cover my desk with paper, and that's what I use to test out my prints. That's how it gets filled up with all sorts of stuff. Lots of prints, lots of stamps. But you can just use a piece of paper and have it set aside, ready to always test your print so that you'll know how much ink you have put on, if you put on enough, if you need to try it again, or if you need to add ink to your ink pad. So just get in the habit of always taking a test print. It's a good idea. I hope you found a lot of good information here. Let me know what you think. I really appreciate you joining me here, and I'll see you in the next video.